I'll let you know as soon as the live streaming starts, Chair. Just got to
Thank
copy
you.
the details in now.
Okay, thank you.
Live streaming now, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well, good evening, everybody. Noswaith dda. Thank you all for attending the meeting. It's Monday, the 2nd of September, and it's our Standards Committee meeting. Can I welcome Councillor Richard Lloyd as an observer of this meeting who's joining us this evening? And everybody else that's on screen are the usual members of this committee. So first of all, can I just go through a few procedural matters? I'm Julia Hughes, the chair of the Standards Committee and independent member. Could I ask you all just to ensure that your mobile phones are switched off and that or on silent, and any background noise is kept to a minimum, please. And if you could keep your microphones muted during the meeting and only unmute when you're invited to speak. And when you finish speaking, if you could put them back onto mute, please, that would be useful to avoid any interference. If you'd like to speak, you can either use the electronic hand raise or you could raise your hand, and perhaps people supporting this meeting could just give me a prompt, please, if I miss anybody that is indicating that they'd like to speak, if you would. If we're going through a vote, I'll be asking for a proposer and a seconder, or someone to move the motion and a seconder, and then we'll vote via a show of hands. It might be at the end of this part of the meeting that we go into a part 2. And if we do that and vote to do that, could I remind you all that you should have nobody with you in that room or in earshot when we're in that part 2. And there would be an exclusion of the press and public at that part of the meeting if we do vote to go there. And if possible, you should, if there's a problem with people overhearing, you should wear headphones if you could as well. The other thing is that we do have a full agenda, and we have a full paper for the part 2, if we go into part 2, as I said. And could I ask you during the meeting, could you please try and keep your camera on? They should only go off if there is an extreme problem with connectivity and interference for yourself as well. I don't want to offend anybody, so I might apologise in advance as well, that I might be asking you to move on during the meeting later on to ensure we have time to cover everything that we have time, but I will make sure that I give everybody an opportunity to speak. So let's go on to the agenda then. First of all, item number 1 is apologies. So have we received any apologies for the meeting, please?
No, Chair, we haven't.
So no apologies this evening, thank you. And item 2 then, declarations of interest, including whipping declarations. So if anybody's got a personal and prejudicial interest on any of the items in any part of the agenda, could you please declare it now and give us an indication of why you have that particular interest in relation to what, please? So have I got any? So no declarations of interest that I can see. Can I remind you that if during the meeting, during the discussion, something does occur that you feel then that it means you do have an interest, please do indicate so that we can make a note of that and you can act accordingly. So I'm going to slip in an item 2B now, or 3A, if you like, before the minutes, for chairs urgent matters. So I've just got two short items on that first of all. And the first one was that, if you recall, we were to hold an ethical liaison group meeting, and that's the meeting we hold with leaders of the groups within the council to discuss various ethical liaison issues and pointers and support that we can give. And we did hold that meeting on the 19th of the 7th, 24. It's not a minuted meeting, it's a discussion meeting. So I'm just going to hand over to the Governance and Monitoring Officer just to give an overview of the areas we are able to feed back about that meeting. So can I hand over to you, Gareth Owens, please?
Chair, because it's a confidential discussion, I won't feed back anything other than the outcomes. And the outcomes are not confidential because they will be visible and have impacts. So the discussion was largely around training, the training that had taken place in May at the request of or the recommendation of this committee, and about how that had been, how it was received, and specifically what we would do next. So further training for those who weren't able to make it, and we've got about a dozen members who were not able to attend, will be arranged. So there'll be further sessions. I think they're October, but Steve Goodrum will be writing around about that. And it is suggested that senior officers be invited to those meetings as well, which would be different from the meetings in May, but we would have basically, we're going to have a follow-up, a catch-up session for those that weren't able to make the meeting or weren't able to make both sessions. In addition, the trainer, Anna Morgan from Red Shiny Apple, had talked about wanting to come back 6 months after the training in order to be able to capture people's thoughts once they'd had time to settle on what should be done next in response to the issues raised during the training. And so we've been trying to find dates for her to do that during November, I think that will be. Now, appreciate that for those who will be doing the training in the autumn, that won't be 6 months later, but needs must. We'll capture the bulk of people after 6 months in November. We also talked about some training for chairs and about trying to bring in both experienced and non-experienced chairs to that training, so that you can get not just a sharing of experience, but also start to build a collective Flintshire view about what is good chairing and what isn't, so we can start to establish some conventions and customs, because part of the challenge with being a chair is that one often doesn't get to see how other meetings are chaired. And so the 5 scrutiny committees, for example, that we have very different feels, depending upon the personality of the chair and the practices of the chair. And we'd like to try and get some more consistency, I think was the aim around that. Also talked about some training that is to be delivered with Audit Wales, which will be an ongoing discussion about, as part of this thing around respect, about the differing political and professional roles within the council, how they need to interface, and what happens when the political professional interface breaks down. So councillors and officers have very different roles within the organisation, very different responsibilities, and we need to make those different responsibilities work. Typically they do, and they do so for the vast majority of interactions, but there are sometimes occasions where they can break down, and that can be significant and can have significant impacts. So there was to be some training and discussion with those, although that will take some more work to arrange, because there's quite a few people to bring in relation to that work. And lastly, the WLGA provides support for group leaders, skills and training support for group leaders, particularly relevant to those to the new duty on them to promote good behaviour, and we're just going to recirculate the details of that, because some of that is face-to-face training, but quite a lot of it is resources that are available online, and I'm going to recirculate details of that for group leaders so that they can access some self-directed learning where they feel they might want to brush up on an area or two, if they have to, say, have a difficult conversation, or even if they just want to perhaps they feel that they might be able to be more proactive around some of the work that they do. So there's some courses on there, for example, about setting good cultures and that kind of thing. So I was going to recirculate those details, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you
Those
very
are all
much.
the outcomes.
Thank you. Anybody got anything burning to ask? No? Okay. Thank you very much for that. So the second item that I was going to add is, if you remember, I was attending as the chair the National Standards Forum, and that was on the 24th of June 2024. As a reminder, all the chairs of standards committees across the whole of Wales get together twice a year remotely and have a meeting to discuss various items. And if you remember, also as a standards committee, you have an opportunity to add things to that agenda or suggest items to be added to that agenda. So just to give you an overview, a very quick overview. If you remember, last time I mentioned remuneration, and if you remember, there was a discussion about consistency across Wales, and it was pointed out that actually if this grouping, this National Standards Forum discussed it, it would be acting outside of our terms of reference, as remuneration is down to the local determination of individual authorities. So we're not going to discuss that one further. We had, as we usually do, some really useful speakers and being able to contact people that we need to interact with. And we had the chair, beg your pardon, the president of the Adjudication Panel for Wales. And if you remember, at the last meeting, you resolved that I should ask a question of the president of the Adjudication Panel for Wales with regard to a case that they undertook and a judgment that they made relating to a Flintshire County councillor and the actual sanction that was given. And if you remember, we agreed that we would just raise that. So I did liaise with the governance and monitoring officer in terms of the way to phrase that for the president of the APW, and prepared a question. And we thought it would be appropriate to give the Adjudication Panel for Wales president, Claire Sharp, advance notice that that question was going to come in and what was in the question. So I did forward it to her, and I did get a response which was quite firm, which actually pointed out that it wasn't appropriate for us to question the outcome and the sanction, which we weren't. We were just pointing out the thoughts, weren't we? But it wasn't appropriate for us to do that, and that she would not be addressing that at all. So although we were unable to ask the question in the forum, regardless of that, we did raise it in that she did see the question that we would have put if we were able to. I don't know whether Gareth Owens, the Governance and Monitoring Officer, wants to come in just to clarify any of that or to add anything.
The response was in no uncertain terms, I think it's fair to say. Very definite. That was a no.
Yeah. But we did fulfill what we did agree in the last meeting, in that we did pass that on. And also
And as I say, having raised the issue, she's now aware of it. Even though you didn't get a chance to ask the question, actually, by being courteous and sending her that advance notice, you were nevertheless able to give her the message. Yeah.
And I think it's important to say that she's actually the outgoing president, and there's a new president coming in who's Mallory Tudor. And because Claire Sharp actually logged what I'd done and asked the question, hopefully Mallory Tudor will also be aware of that area that we've raised as well. So there is an outcome for us in a way as a panel. So apart from that, she did have lots of discussions with us, and particularly she had a discussion around the permission to appeal process and how we as Standards Committee can help with this process by ensuring appropriate records are kept during any hearing that can be called upon as necessary, if appropriate. Because if any Standards Committee undertakes a hearing and they actually agree to give a sanction and they give a sanction, the subject member or the person who has that sanction placed upon them has the opportunity to appeal to the Adjudication Panel for Wales if they don't agree with that sanction within a certain timeline. But it's up to the President of the Adjudication Panel for Wales to decide whether that appeal will be accepted and will be heard. So we have some information, and I have shared that with both the Governance and Monitoring Officer and the Legal Services Manager, and with Claire Hardy, who I welcome to the meeting at the moment, who joined us just after I did the welcome. So sorry, Claire, from Geldards, who's a legal firm that do represent us in a number of ways, so that they can use that if and when we have a hearing. And as you know, we've got an upcoming hearing. And it's very much about making sure that we keep the appropriate records and we ensure that we have the rationale for particular decisions, etc. So that will be circulated. We also had information from Paul Egan from One Voice Wales, who discussed how they support ethical behaviour and civility and respect in city, town and community councils. We also had, as we usually do, which is really beneficial, the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales, Michelle Morris, attending, who gave us a presentation and questions. I'm not going to go into detail about that because we do have the annual report for the Ombudsman on the agenda, including the independent review that they undertook following a complaint by a member of the public about one of their team leaders. And what she did discuss, though, briefly, was the piece of work being worked on in conjunction with monitoring officers on the local resolution procedures, and we will refer to that later on. And then we also covered the leaders' duties, and we just did a round robin to check how other counties have experienced it and put it into place. And many of them say they've embraced it, it's progressing, it's going in the right direction. Some counties are having great difficulty because of the number of independents who aren't in groups at all as well. So the date of the next meeting is January the 27th, 2025. And there is going to be a review on the frequency of those meetings as well, but I will keep you informed about that. So thank you. I'm going to go back to the agenda as printed then onto the minutes, which is item 3. And we have 2 sets of minutes to look at item 3. And you should find them in your papers pack. The first set starting on page 5. And that was the meeting of June the 3rd, 2024. Could I just pause at that point because I can see a hand. I've got our observer, Councillor Richard Lloyd. Did you want to come in at that point, Councillor Lloyd?
Yes, thanks very much, Chair. Thank you for allowing me to observe the meeting. I wondered if you'd be so kind as to let me speak briefly on the minutes of July the 1st, if that's okay.
Can you just, if for the moment, if I could just leave you to just hold whilst we do June the 3rd, first of all. What we're going to do is go through for accuracy, and then we're going to go through for matters arising, and then we'll move on to the next minute. So if you could just leave the hand up to remind me, and I'll come back to that in a moment, if that's okay.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
So June the 3rd then, can I do accuracy first of all? Rather than go page 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'm going to say the number of the page that it is in your pack so that there's no confusion. So accuracy first, please. Page 5, page 6, page 7, page 8, page 9, page 10, page 11. Nobody's pointing out any accuracy. Could I have someone to move the minutes as a correct record, please? Thank you, Councillor Carberry, and a seconder. Thank you, Councillor Rosalind Griffiths as well. Thank you very much. So any matters arising then, please, on page 5. Can I just query at the bottom of the page, civility and respect? You were just going to give us an update, Gareth Owens, Governance Officer, on the remaining town and community councils that were going to be contacted.
Yeah, so I think we were up to 20 odd, weren't we, who'd accepted the or were committing to the SLCC protocol on respect. I contacted the others, got typically the same response, which is that they did not believe that the additional protocol suggested by One Voice Wales would add anything to the obligations that were in the Code of Conduct. Potentially, one might say that that's slightly missing the point, because part of the thing about the One Voice Wales was that it required a bit of positive action and promotion. But that's their view. They'd looked at it, they considered it. They haven't just neglected to answer us. They've made a positive decision, or they've made an affirmative decision that they're not going to take action.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. So moving on to page 6, any matters arising on page 6? If not, I'll bring the Chief Officer Governance and Monitoring in again, Gareth Owens, on the the biannual, National Standards Conference, if you've got any update on that one. We were waiting on some further information, if you remember.
No, still don't have an update, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you. You'll let us know if they do come forward with anything. Thank you. Anything more on page 6 from anybody? Page 7? Anything on page 8? On page 8 under number 7, we will discuss in the forward work programme. If you remember, we've still got outstanding the review of the Flintshire Standard and the review of the member officer protocol. And also, if you remember, I mentioned the Ombudsman looking at the local resolution procedures, and there is going to be, well, I'll hand over to Gareth to tell us about a slight redraft there that the monitoring officers are going to be involved with. Gareth Owens.
Yeah, so the Ombudsman's Office, as you know, asked for copies of all of our local resolution processes and just wanted to check them to make sure that they complied with the statutory framework that's put in place by the Local Government Act that gives rise to the creation of standards committees, but also the limited case law in relation to the inherent jurisdiction, if I can put it that way, of councils to control their own internal affairs. Now, when I say the inherent jurisdiction of councils, actually, as statutory organisations created by statute, there is a very small scope for an implied inherent jurisdiction, and we don't have, in effect, we have very little scope to do anything outside of statute in the ethical arena. And so the Ombudsman's Office took some council's advice, came back with very clear advice about what can and can't go into an LRP, and that has resulted in a sort of general consensus that amongst monitoring officers, we'd like, if we can, to try and draft a single model for local resolution processes that could be uniformly adopted across Wales to make sure that we are compliant. The monitoring officers were rather hoping that that the Ombudsman would do that for us. having had a chat with the Ombudsman herself and her Director of Law and Investigations last week, that's not going to happen. But they are prepared to be a stakeholder in a working group established by the monitoring officers if we want to do that work ourselves. So we have a meeting coming up at the beginning of October where I'll be reporting that back to my fellow monitoring officers and seeing if they're prepared to volunteer their own time and efforts alongside somebody from the Ombudsman's office to do a national model.
Thank you.
Realistically, Chair, as you know, I
Yeah.
briefed you on this, didn't we, Friday afternoon, I think it was. Realistically, we're talking Christmas probably before we get somewhere with that, because my fellows are just as busy, every bit as busy as I am, trying to get trying to get 5 monitoring officers into the same virtual space is very challenging in terms of coordinating diaries.
Thank you. And that does impact on our timeline in terms of updating some of our protocols as well, doesn't it? So we'll have to bear that in mind as well. Anything else on page 8 from anybody? Page 9. Can I bring in? I've got 2 people waiting. I'll start with Jill Murgatroyd and then David Davis. Thank you. Jill.
Thank you. Mine was still on page 8, Chair.
Okay, thank
before
you.
we move on. It was relating to the previous item 6, and I appreciate you've already mentioned our item E, and you've kindly given us an update. I think it would just be really helpful for the rest of the committee if an update could be provided in respect of items B, C, D and F, please. Just how things are progressing. Thank you.
So, right. So it's an update on the B, C,
D and
D
F.
and F. I will hand over to the Governance and Monitoring Officer, Gareth Owens, again, please, if you could give us an update on what's happening with those areas. Thank you. So it's on page 7, B at the bottom, C, D and F.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I see them. I'm just thinking about what I'm going to say.
Okay.
Other than to say that they've all been implemented. I think that,
Okay.
Including and in particular paragraph D.
Lovely. Okay, thank you. Are you comfortable with that, Jill? Okay. Thank you for completeness there. Anything else on page 8 then? I've got page 9 and I assume it's 9 for David Davis then, please.
Yes, just in terms of accuracy of the minutes, Chair, and I've only just spotted it, but there is a spelling error back on page 6, which is the paragraph 6. It's just the word notification, just there's a letter I missing from that.
Okay, we'll get that updated. Thank you very much. So that's page 6, item 6.
Yes, and the word notification.
Notification. Thank you very much for that.
It's the subject heading, the word notification.
Oh, yes. Thank you. Got that. Thank you very much. So anything on page 9? Anything on page 10? Nobody's got anything on page 10. If I just take you to paragraph 2, if we can just have an update about the outcome paper from Gareth Owens, Monitoring Officer, in relation to the PSOW resources and the outcome paper following the investigation, their internal investigation. I think we had a discussion, didn't we, about when it might be?
So the Ombudsman has engaged Dr. Melissa McCulloch to do the independent review. The published timeframe for that is the autumn, and I understand that they are on track for that, giving no commitments and no firm dates, but it is likely to be earlier autumn than later autumn, but
Thank you for that.
they have not yet had they have not yet had the first draft of the report, so they need to get the first draft. They need to obviously comment, finalize, and when I say comment, sense check, just make sure there's no factual errors. Obviously, they're not going to be changing recommendations or anything, but they will get the first draft. They will comment. It will then have to go to translation before being published.
Thank you.
But the Ombudsman has obviously got a promise to talk to a wide range of individuals following the publication of the report. Chairs and the Standards Forum will be one of those, she is in touch with Clive Wolfendale as the chair of the Standards Forum, and has said that she will liaise with him and take his views about whether the chairs discuss this at their next scheduled forum meeting in January, or whether there's a need to call a special meeting of the forum. Likewise, she's also offered to come along and talk to us as monitoring officers about the findings. We'll keep a slot for her at any of our meetings that she wishes to attend.
Thank you. That's useful. Thank you. Anything else on page 10 from anybody? Anything on page 11? So with those areas, we've moved on that particular paper and we've looked at the matters arising. We're going to move on to the Standards Committee meeting of the 1st of July. I'm going to go through, first of all, for accuracy, and then I'll come on to matters arising, and I'm going to take the matters arising from members of this committee first before I come to you, Councillor Richard Lloyd. So anything on page 13 for accuracy, 14, 15, 16, 17. No, I'm not seeing anybody. So can I have somebody to move that's a correct record of those minutes, please? Thank you, David Davies, seconded Councillor Ian Hodge. Thank you very much. Everybody comfortable with that, those minutes? Yeah, I'm not seeing anybody who's not. Thank you. So matters arising, anything on page 13, page 14, page 15, page, I'll come back to you, Councillor Richard Lloyd, thank you. Page 16 for members and page 17. Okay, Councillor Richard Lloyd, I'll let you in briefly just to raise the area that you want to raise. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, Chair, for allowing me to speak. Yeah, I put my hand up because it was page 15. Regarding 15. Reports. Yeah, 15. Reports from independent members on the visits to County Council meetings. It's regarding the planning committee that Jacqueline attended on the 25th of October. I did, that was 2023. I did view the Standards Committee meeting on the 1st of July online, and when Jacqueline spoke, she actually stated that the chair didn't introduce her, and I see the minutes have been altered. Actually, it does say the chair introduced Jacqueline, but actually if you look at the recording, Jacqueline said that the chair didn't introduce her. I was very surprised because I knew I had done. So I viewed the recording, and I think Gareth may have viewed it as well, because I did send an email to say that I definitely introduced Jacqueline, and she made a statement at the beginning of the meeting. I say the minutes are correct as they read, because it does say that the chair welcomed and introduced by the chair there. So they are correct, but as I say, if you look at the recording, it clearly states, Jacqueline's clearly stated that I didn't introduce her. Also, it says about the cameras on where possible. I just wanted to explain that as chair, I'll never allow any member of the planning committee to speak without the camera on. And on viewing the recording again, the only cameras that weren't on when people spoke were the officers who were in the chamber, and they have a laptop on as well, so they don't have their picture showing on the laptop. but the camera in the chamber, when they speak, zooms onto them and it shows them speaking in the chamber. So I just wanted to point that out as well, because that actually didn't happen either. I do agree with it saying well chaired, so thank you, Jacqueline, for that. So I don't know whether Jacqueline remembers. I don't know whether there was a mix-up between another meeting or not, but I just wanted to point those things out. Thanks very much, Chair.
Thank you for that. I don't know if Jacqueline, do you want to make a comment or not?
I'll be honest, Chair, I can't remember now. It's going back quite a while, so apologies if I was incorrect in my report.
Thank you for that, and it is correct now in the minutes. Thank you. We do try to carefully feedback and hopefully feedback things that are beneficial to committees, isn't it? So, yeah, thank you very much for your comment there, Councillor Lloyd, as well. So we've gone through the minutes then. Everybody comfortable then? We've raised everything we want to on those minutes. Right, okay, I'm going to move us on then, please, to item 4, which is dispensations. And have we had any requests for dispensations? I don't think we have. No. So we won't be covering anything there. So let's move on to the items for decision. Thank you then. And we're going to move on to item 5, which is a report back from independent member visits to the county council meetings. We've got one this evening. As you remember, as a committee, we go out and visit town and community councils, and then we also go and visit county council meetings and subcommittee meetings and observe, and hopefully are able to feedback both positive areas that we see together with any areas that people might want to reflect on and think about. So can I ask Jacqueline if she would feedback on the county council meeting of the 22nd of July 2024, please? Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this meeting was held on Monday, the 22nd of July. It commenced at 1 p.m. prompt and it concluded at 5:05. It was a hybrid meeting. There were 29 people in person with 11 virtually present. I did notice people were coming in and out, so it was quite difficult. So that was at the point when I counted. I wasn't introduced or given the opportunity to introduce myself at this meeting. The meeting started with a prayer and then it went on to the passing of the former Flintshire councillor, Gareth Roberts, which was noted at this point. Item 1 on the agenda was several presentations, although it was difficult to follow the presentations online. That was partly due to, I think, a technical issue with sound quality. Item 2 on the agenda was pushed back to allow councillors to pay tributes to the former councillor from Holywell, who had recently passed away. It was a very nice touch, as Gareth Roberts was a passionate Welsh speaker and the words were spoken first in Welsh and then in English. Like I said, I thought that was quite a nice touch. Apologies featured on item 4 of the agenda with declarations of interest at item 5. One councillor declared an interest. Minutes were reviewed page by page, moved and seconded. The chair on numerous occasions seemed to get confused and referred to the incorrect item on the agenda. And I noted that the monitoring officer stepped in on a couple of occasions to clarify. It materialised later that the agenda that the chair had differed from what members had had. I think that's what caused the confusion. It was a lengthy meeting with a packed agenda. Overall, the meeting progressed very well. A comfort break was taken at 2:50 and the meeting resumed at 3:05. At times, the discussions I would say passionate, but on the whole were conducted in a very professional manner. There was one occasion where one councillor thought another councillor had overstepped the mark and requested an apology, but this was refused. But like I said, on the whole, it was very, very well chaired and no problems with it. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Has anybody got any questions for Jackie about that particular meeting, or any comments or observations? No, can't see anybody. Are there any particular areas then that as a committee, because we do feedback, that we'd want to feedback specifically about that committee to the chair? Is there anything, Jacqueline, you would be feeding back, you think?
No, because I'll be honest, I think it was just the confusion over the agenda, which I think can happen in any meeting. But no, overall, I thought it was really well chaired, very well supported by the monitoring officer.
So that's what we could feed back, isn't it? If would that be all right then, please? If you've noted that, Gareth Owens, Governance and Monitoring Officer, to feed back to the chair.
What, that they're lucky to have me, Chair?
That it was very well chaired, and that maybe there needs to be a note if there was an issue with agendas about just double checking that everybody's got the same agenda.
Well, we clarified that during the meeting. What had happened was we'd printed the agenda for the chair, and he'd used that for his briefing the day before. Following that, an item had been taken off. So he was always one number ahead of the rest of us. The items were the same, but he was just one number ahead.
Okay.
And we clarified that during the meeting. So we said, well, look, Chair, it's just because you've got the old agenda, we've deleted an item. So whilst you're talking about item 3, we're still on item 2, or so on.
Okay. Thank you. But if you could feed back to the chair about the good chairing, I think, and the fact that in areas the meeting was passionate, but it was professional. Passionate but professional. I think that's what you said, Jacqueline, wasn't it? Thank you very much.
Yeah, it was.
Thank you. So we've got no other feedback from visits to County Council. So thank you very much for that feedback.
Chair, David Davis has his hand up.
Oh, beg your pardon. I didn't spot that. Thank you, David Davis.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I noticed that Jacqueline wasn't introduced at the full council meeting, and I experienced the same when I attended the annual general meeting, and perhaps it's a shame because it's the full council meeting, and it's an opportunity lost for all of the councillors to be made aware that a member of this committee is present. So I know that it's some of the subcommittees and scrutiny committees we are introduced. It may be that in full council meeting that it should be a courtesy extended to us that we are introduced. Thank you.
Thank you. Are the members comfortable if we suggest that feedback goes back to the chairs, that if we do attend a meeting, if they could just give a brief introduction about who we are and why we're there, even if it might have happened before, because it puts a name to a face, doesn't it, as well? Are people comfortable with that? I'm seeing nods, hands up. Yeah. Would it be possible again then, Gareth Owens, to feed that back through, please? Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for bringing that up. So I'm going to move us on from item number 5 then to item number 6, which is under items for information. Which is overview of ethical complaints, and you should find that the information on pages 19 to 32 of your pack. And our purpose in this one is that we're going to note the number and types of complaints. So I'm going to hand over to Chief Officer Governance Gareth Owens to take us through this paper, and then we can have any questions and queries afterwards. So I'll hand over. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair. So you'll see just at the bottom of page 19, we've had 4 new complaints, and that 3 have been dismissed. So we have a growing tally of complaints that are being investigated. Some of the reasons for the length of time in the investigation are as per the annual report, which is that the Ombudsman has seen not only a year-on-year increase in the number of complaints for the last 4 years, but also an increase in the number of complaints that are actually investigated, and then a number that are referred on. So what that means from the Ombudsman's perspective is that those that have to be investigated and those that are referred for a hearing are more onerous. So not only is the number of complaints going up, but actually overall the workload's becoming more onerous as well at the same time. So that has caused them to miss some of their performance targets around the speed of investigation. Now, in relation to some of the specific complaints that remain open at Flintshire. I won't talk about each individual complaint, but I did take the opportunity to talk to the manager responsible for investigations. And we went through each case in turn to have a look and to see whether there were good reasons or whether they were for delay or whether there was anything that might need to be done in order to help move things along more quickly. One of the cases, as it says there, has been awaiting the conclusion of a criminal prosecution, and it's always the case that where there is a parallel prosecution, the criminal process will proceed first, and the Ombudsman's investigations will await the outcome of the criminal proceedings. Now, those criminal proceedings in that case have resolved, and the Ombudsman is therefore expecting that case to be brought to a conclusion where they will be able to conclude their investigation and make a recommendation either for referral or that no action needs to be taken relatively shortly. A couple of cases that are being investigated are at the conclusion of the investigation stage, and there is an internal process of sign-off. So once the investigator has finished, they make a recommendation that all recommendations to take matters forward are seen by the Director of Law Investigations and indeed seen by the Ombudsman herself. So there is an internal sign-off process, and a number of our cases are going through that. And there is one case relating to the storm, which is actually quite difficult has been quite difficult for the Ombudsman's office to get to grips with. There's the complainant made some vague and unhelpful references to talking to somebody, and we've had to try and track down who that person was. Now, as you might imagine, during the storm like that, a large storm like that, large numbers of people are engaged and on the ground. Trying to find the individual is quite challenging. And so I've had a conversation behind the scenes to try and remove what appeared to be a bit of a barrier to the investigator in that case in order to try and bring it forward, because clearly it's important both to the complainant and to the member complained of that cases are dealt with as swiftly as possible. So having that chat has enabled me to try and remove some of those barriers. Other than that, Chair, we've got cases that are within their performance targets. Whether they are concluded within those performance targets remains to be seen. But whilst they are within their normal time parameters, they need to be allowed to run their course. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
Thank you very much. Can I bring Matt Powell, the Legal Services Manager, in? He's got his hand up. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to bring to your attention an email I've received from Councillor Bernie Attridge, who's requesting to be submitted into the Standards Committee meeting, and has said that he's requested admittance several times.
He's certainly able to come and join us as an observer. I'll just defer to Gareth Owens. I'm correct there, aren't I?
The meeting's open to press and public, Chair. Yes, he's able to attend, but we haven't had any notification that anybody's in the waiting room, Matt.
No, I've not been aware that we've had any notifications. I'm not.
So if you re-forward him the link and he tries the link.
I'll send Councillor Attridge the link now.
Okay.
Thanks, Maureen. I'll forward the email to yourself.
I have just responded to an email that was forwarded on to me to say that the meeting is being live streamed and it's available to view on the council's website now. But I will obviously, if he wishes to speak at the meeting, then I will send him the link now.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for bringing that up. So anything else on this paper that we've just had about the overview of ethical complaints? Any questions or queries that anybody's got? Can't see anybody indicating. So thank you very much for that. So the recommendation is that we note the number and type of a complaint. So can I have somebody to move on that, please? Jill Murgatroyd, thank you. And Mark Morgan seconded it. Thank you very much for that. So that concludes number 6. So let's move on to item 7, and that's our forward work programme. As you're aware, we always consider the topics to be included for the forward work programme that we have attached. And you should find that programme on pages 33 to 34. It has us running through the meetings we've got from September 24 through to June 2025. And if you remember, I mentioned earlier on in the meeting that somewhere within there, we need to slot in the review of the Flintshire Standard and the member officer protocol. And of course, we're awaiting feedback, more training, etc. So I'm going to just ask Gareth Owens, monitoring officer, where do you feel that that could slot in terms of that forward work programme realistically, without having to keep moving it on those two areas?
So a couple of things, Chair. You following our discussion last week, I've checked back the agreed programme for reviewing the codes of protocols within the Constitution to make sure that all are reviewed at least once. Did notice that the protocol on the production of council newsletters, which is scheduled for November 2024, was actually undertaken in March 2023. So we might take that out from that. We might take that out from that meeting because we've done it for this council term, so to speak.
Okay.
And then the only protocol that we haven't reviewed, apart from the member officer and the Flintshire Standard, which I'll come on to in a minute, is the planning code of practice. That was the last of the codes and protocols that were to be reviewed. Scheduled it for early 2025, and you'll see that it's in there for January.
Yeah.
Okay. Flintshire Standard is our version of a local resolution procedure, an LRP. So when I was talking earlier about needing to await the outcome of the review of the LRP, that will affect the Flintshire Standard, so it would be as well to do that in 2025, perhaps March.
Okay.
And we had agreed, hadn't we, had we not, Chair, that we would do the LRP and the member officer protocol at the same time, because clearly the two interact, and so it would make sense to do to put the member officer protocol and the Flintshire Standard in for March 25.
Okay.
A couple of other things. Bit early, but November would be the meeting before the next forum. So in November, we need to have items for the forum.
Yeah, potential items for the agenda. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, the January meeting of the committee is going to be before the forum takes place, which will be towards the end of the month, because, of course, we always meet on the first Monday.
Yeah, 27th of January. The meeting will be.
Yeah, so yeah, well in advance of that. So feedback from that would need to be scheduled for March also.
Yeah. Okay. Feedback from the forum. And again, something we discussed earlier on was the All Wales conference, and again, that's really difficult to pencil in because we don't know when it's going to be. So maybe we could.
Sure.
Sorry?
It's out of our hands, of course, Chair, because it's the monitoring officers in South Wales who'll be arranging it. And whilst we can ask and we can seek to influence, we can't control.
Maybe we could just slot it into reports to be scheduled so that we don't lose it, do you think?
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
The only other thing, I don't think we have a date for the next ethical liaison meeting, but certainly I would say that it would be either in, well, when did we have the last one? We had the last one in July, We have 2 a year, so it would be January time. So I would say January, you need to be putting forward suggested agenda items for the next ELM.
Thank you. I'm just going to bring Jill in, who's got her hand up. Jill.
Thanks, Chair. It was just a quick one. I can see on this one, the forward work programme for this September 24. Obviously, we've got the feedback from visits or attendance to both town and community councils and also the county council. And obviously, we've had feedback from one of those from Jacqueline Guest. I just wanted to check, have we now concluded completely both sets, or is there anything else we still need to be scheduling in for the rest of the year?
No, been to every meeting at least once, Chair, and obviously county council meeting, full council meeting more frequently than that.
So when would we start that cycle again, do you feel?
It's very much a matter for the committee about when you think it might add value. Chair, you in another place, in another guise, you've taken the view that 2 years would be an appropriate interval. If we left it to 2 years, that would be 2026. That would be the final year of this authority term.
Okay. Okay. Are you comfortable with that, committee? And unless, of course, there was any reason for us to be called for specific ones, if there was a request, for example, sometimes it might be that there's a request, isn't there? In which case we could consider that, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chair, sorry, just to return. Has Councillor Attridge been admitted to the meeting?
I can't see him on screen.
I can't see him. I just wondered, Maureen, have you sent him the link?
Apologies, Gareth, I was on mute. Yes, I have sent him the link and he has accepted it. And I just, there's a name hidden behind a title, and I can't see whether it's Councillor Attridge that's waiting to be admitted. I just can't. I can see. I can try and click on it. Can you see if Councillor Attridge is waiting to be admitted, Gareth, please? Can you?
I don't have him on the admittance list.
No.
That's why I was raising it. No.
I'll just close the participants list down and I'll reopen it and perhaps it might show.
Okay, well, perhaps you could carry on working on that in the background, please, Maureen.
Okay.
Thank you very much. So any other queries about the forward work programme? Do we need to pencil in? We will go back into, won't we, the annual report and the group leaders' duty meetings that we will be holding. So do we need to pencil anything in about the annual report?
So you'd start working on that in March when you chair, with the meetings with the group leaders, and then either April or June for the annual report.
So we need to pencil it in one of those.
I think you signed it off in June this year.
So should we start with the April meeting to start to work on it?
Well, when we start to work on it, of course, the committee has private meetings, doesn't it, with the leaders, gathers the evidence that it needs then to be able to include the statutory assessment that you're required to make within your report. So some of the process goes on behind the scenes and wouldn't therefore appear in your forward work programme. But approval of the report would perhaps be June.
June. Are members comfortable with us slotting that into June? I can see lots of nods and thumbs up. Thank you very much. So if we slot that into June, annual report. Okay. Any other areas that anybody feels that we haven't covered? Remember that we do look at this regularly. So if anything emerges, we can always slot that in or move things around if other things transpire that mean that something needs to be moved? No, I'm not seeing anything. So can I have someone to move that we're comfortable with the things that we've added to the annual forward work programme? Thank you, Mark Morgan. Somebody to second. Thank you, Jill. Everybody comfortable with that programme? Yeah. Okay. Thank you very much. So moving on then to item number 8, which is the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales annual report for the year, which is the year 23-24. And we've got that.
Chair,
hello.
It's Ian here. I've had a message from Bernie. Apparently he needs an Apple ID, so he can't get a connection at the moment. I was the one that forwarded on to Maureen and set up asked her to admit him or talk to Gareth about it. But he has no Apple ID, just to inform you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for that update. Thank you. Yeah, Public Services Ombudsman for Wales annual report, pages 35 to 182 you should have, and I'm going to hand you over to Chief Officer Governance Gareth Owens to take us through some of the key areas that he wants to highlight within that report, and then I'll open up for any questions or queries. Gareth.
Thank you, Chair. So I've provided you a link to the report at the bottom of page 35. You'll see the key statistics there to which I referred earlier. Plus 16% increase in the number of ethical complaints received overall. They've managed to assess 328, and you'll see there that the numbers are up for county councillors and town and community councillors. There's a massive statistical drop for park authority members, because there were 3 complaints last year and there's only 1 this year. So you let that be a lesson to you about, or a cautionary tale about the use of percentages, Chair, because clearly we're talking about, largely insignificant numbers there, but the others are significant. So, plus 10%, that's another 17, plus 11%. So that's another 17, 18 cases on town and community, on county councillors, plus 17%. So that's somewhere up near, another 20 to 30 complaints in relation to town and community councillors. So significant number of increases, extra number of cases for them. And as I've said, cases that are themselves more onerous and more time consuming to resolve. I've given you how that compared in terms of numbers to previous years as well. You can see as well that they've got a large number, 21 being referred for a hearing. Now, it was only 3 or 4 years ago where we were talking about 4 and 6 complaints being referred for a hearing. And here we're talking about 21. So you go 22, 23. 12 cases referred for a hearing. So not that long ago we were talking about relatively low numbers. So far more time consuming for them, hence delays. And of course they've had the challenge of dealing with the independent investigation following the misbehaviour of one of their team leaders previously. You see that they, at page 141 in their report, that what they do is they split or they break down the complaints based on the NODM principles. And as always, equality and respect is forms the largest chunk of that. So basically, I'm unhappy about how that person spoke to me, or that person's behaviour was disrespectful, and so on and so forth. One of the easiest complaints, I think, to levy, and consequently not one that gets taken forward to the same degree as others, but they give you that breakdown there nonetheless. And of course, what one will find is that a case can generate different findings or multiple findings. So when we were doing the training, I referred to a county councillor who got involved in a matter when he had a personal and prejudicial interest. You know, the leader of the council who got involved when they had a personal and prejudicial interest, as well as an interest violation that was a code violation on grounds of bringing one's office into disrepute. But I think the numbers there are what people say at the outset in terms of it. So very much the Ombudsman's report, it's there. I don't know whether there are any issues, Chair, that you see, or whether committee members see any issues arising out of it, where this committee needs to take action or wants to send a message.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that overview. Can I open it up to the committee to ask if there's anybody who wants to make a query? And Jill Murgatroyd, please. Thank you.
Thanks, Chair, and thanks, Gareth, for the summary as well. That's really helpful. It was just really a quick question in terms of your covering report on page 36, 1.03 and 1.02, which was just about the percentage increases compared to previous years that you've mentioned. And I agree, obviously, they are large increases. I'm mindful, though, that those two previous years were during COVID times, and things were very different, weren't they, then, in terms of meetings? So I just wondered more if, I appreciate you won't know the figures off the top of your head, but I just wondered if you have a sense of pre-COVID, whether what we're seeing now from this report compared to pre-COVID, whether it's still an increase or not, or whether it's much of a muchness.
You're just on mute at the moment, Gareth.
Sorry, 2020 to 2021 was the year we first went into lockdown, of course. There was a drop in the number of complaints then. 21-22, we had periods of lockdown, but we're starting to come back towards, I was going to say normality, something that we knew before COVID, whether that's normal or not, I don't know. Something like we knew before pre-COVID. Complaints were much lower. Post-COVID, during the COVID era, obviously there was a cessation of democratic process in large measure, and so the number of complaints inevitably dropped. Post-COVID, they came back with a bit of a bang. People seem to come out of COVID angry, apparently, and with some frustrations, and that started that upwards trend that we've seen since. So now this isn't. I don't know whether COVID had something to do with it, whether it changed people's attitudes or tolerance or what, I don't know. But you know, there's a markedly different trend post-COVID to pre-COVID. It was still a gently rising trend pre-COVID, but it's only gentle, whereas not these sorts of numbers.
Thank you. Does that answer your question, Jill? Are you comfortable with that?
Thank you. Yes, it is helpful just to try and get a sense of proportion or not, as the case may be. Because if we're comparing it with COVID times, inevitably the figures are going to show large percentage increases. So that's helpful. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else got any queries or questions? No, I'm not seeing anybody indicating. So if I just go to the before we go to the recommendation, there is a section which said, do we feel, given what we've heard and what we've read, is there any action needed by the committee? So in terms of Flintshire with what's coming out, so is there anything anybody would consider that we need to act upon, given what you've seen? No, so I'm not seeing anybody currently feeling that there is. So the recommendation then, could I have someone to move that we've considered the matters relating to the code of conduct complaints recorded, and we've decided that there aren't any action points that we need to take at the moment. So, sorry, to the annual report. So Mark Morgan's and seconded by Councillor Ian Hodge. Is everybody comfortable with that? Could I just have a show of hands, please? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And thank you very much for that report and for providing us with all that information. So next on the agenda is actually item 9. Now, item 9, the following item is considered to be exempt by virtue of paragraphs 18C of Part 4 of Schedule 12A of the Local Government Act 1972 as amended. The report contains information from a report by the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales in relation to a forthcoming hearing, which was received by the Council in confidence. The public interest in withholding the information outweighs the interest in disclosing it until such time as the information is revealed during the hearing. So could I have a proposal, please, for somebody to actually, that we move forward in private session to look at this item number 9. So I've got Councillor Carberry proposing, I've got David Davis seconding, and could I just have a show of hands, please, for people for us to move it into private session? So we've got unanimous to move through. So thank you very much. So before we actually go into that part 2 item then, Richard Lloyd wants to speak first.
Sorry, Chair, am I able to stay, Gareth? Oh, not. I'm not public, I'm not press from a councillor, I'm still classed as public, presumably, am I?
This is in relation to a specific case. So as we would not allow people to stay at a licensing subcommittee hearing because it relates to, facts and matters on pertaining to specific individuals. So I would say for yourself that you're not able to remain.
Thank you, Gareth. I shall do. Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you.
And thank you for observing the meeting, and thanks for your contributions.
Okay. Thank you.
And then I'm very aware.
There as witness at that hearing. So I will bid you all good evening.
And thank you for your attendance this evening. So thank you.
When you're ready, Chair, I'll stop the live streaming.
We just need to check that we have nobody else in the meeting that shouldn't be here, apart from our committee members and legal support and supporting officers, which we don't. So thank you very much, everybody, for attending the first part of the meeting. And we'll now move into this part 2, and we'll stop the live streaming. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. I'll stop the live streaming and the recording, and I'll let you know when both have been stopped.
Thank you.